I just bought a new electric bike. I've had a few electric bikes and gradually have gone up in quality. And this one's a second-hand one. It's a Focus Thron. It was purchased apparently 5 years ago by the person who sold it to me. And from what I can find, it was probably a 2015 model. Which isn't, it's more than 5 years ago, it's more like 7 years ago. Could be a 2016 model, who knows? I wouldn't go any further than that. Anyway, I've had a few rides on it without doing anything to it, and it's awesome. But because it's done 1,700 kilometres, and the motor just sounds a little bit whirry to me sometimes, I want to strip it down, plus that's generally what I do when I do things. So I'm going to strip it down, pull the motor out, check out all the connections and the wiring and all that sort of thing, and hopefully it's all good, which I imagine it will be, but just make sure of it so that I know that I don't have to be concerned about anything. So that freewheel looks like it's going to come with the outer housing there. I haven't been able to get this one off. I'll see what happens. That's obviously the motor, you'd think. Can't see where else it would be. So we'll just keep gently trying to get that off. There's a few dowels in there. There's obviously circuit boards and stuff. I would think the electronics would have to go, because the circuit board seems like it's stuck to this side. So the wires would have to follow it. Yes. Okay, so there's some plugs to undo, and we'll go ahead and do that. And that must be the motor power wires, seeing as they're large ones. There's 3 of them, starting with black, blue and yellow. So the good news is it's nice and tidy inside. There must be a gear reduction in here. I'll check that out. Oh, there's a freewheel in that as well. I'd say it all looks pretty good. Some sort of sensor on the crank there. Maybe that's the torque sensor. Actually, there's 2 preload sort of looking things on that. That actually looks like freewheel. That would be what goes over the freewheel. Yep. There's the freewheel. That bearing sounds a little bit rough, so I'll probably pull that open and see if I can pump some grease into it. Circuit board's nice and tucked away. Everything's good and clean, and the grease isn't black, so that's a good sign. I'd say it's in good health, but that bearing, I just feel I really need to get in there and just give that a bit of a lube. This one over here doesn't really freewheel that easily, so I don't know what the bearing's like in that. It's obviously it's got that torque sensor in it as well. Oh, there's a roller bearing or something there, or maybe it's a one-way clutch there as well. I'll have to be careful of that. See if I can get a good picture of how that comes off. There's a couple of little flat, maybe wavy washers. That seems to be about it. And that bearing doesn't look like it goes on any particular direction. So that must be a roller bearing. Like it fits into that housing there. There's a bush by the look of it, possibly, or just not. Anyway, we'll leave it at that and I'll get back to you. So I haven't pulled the motor housing off. There's the motor helical pinion, and it seems to be spinning fine. It spins on this big gear, which is nice and clean until I put my black fingers on it, and it has a freewheel function in it. But that bearing there feels nice. This one here feels nice, so if it ain't broke, don't fix it. I've cleaned up the bearing. And it's a lot better. I'm not going to bother replacing it because it's not that bad. This is the spline where your sprocket goes on the pedals. So any grot goes straight up against this seal here, and I've got a feeling some gets through. So I've flooded that with oil, got it clean, and then repacked it with some grease, and that should do the trick for its lifespan, I'd say. The only problem I've found with this drive is that bearing, and I also noticed that these freewheel poles or teeth, a couple of them have got little chips in them, like that one there. I don't know if you can see it, but if you slide the screwdriver down, it catches before it gets to the end of the teeth. So on a good one it'll slide right to the end without catching pretty much at all. That one catches, that one's good, that one's good, 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 good. Anyway, there's a couple of them that are got a little bit of a nick out of them or something like that. I'll clean up all the rest of it. There's a roller bearing that goes in there, so I'll make sure that's really good and clean, and I'll put a little bit of grease on it, not too much because it'll go into the pawl. There's a seal in here. I'll just clean that up and put some rubber grease on it, and we'll start putting it back together. So this is the torque sensor. Don't know how that works. Not going to worry about that. This is the ratchet or the pawl, P-A-W-L, I think that's spelt, and they go in there and they pop out and they catch, and one of them was sticking and the other one's not great, and you can see they're a bit dirty in there, so I'm just going to clean that up. There's a little circlip ring that goes around there. Just clean all that up, make them move freely, because if they're not moving freely you're not going to have that freewheel working correctly, and it could chip those teeth like it did, so could be the reason. A bit of ASO on all the electrical connections, magic stuff. Oops, sorry. So yellow, blue, black. I hope they're the same as the last time. And I'm just going to put some silicone. It had some silicone when I pulled it apart, and this little rubber seal in there is pretty flush, so it's probably not doing much, so definitely needs a smear of silicone.